And the answer is no. No. Maybe.
We are the Armed Attorneys. Today we're talking about 3 self-defense myths that need to die. They keep coming up over and over, and I've heard each of these in the past week, and so that's what's bringing all this up. But before we begin, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting that like button. And today's video is brought to you by our friends over at Sonoran Desert Institute. Check them out at sdi.edu/armed-attorneys. They have online gunsmithing, armor courses, and so much more to offer. Check them out, sdi.edu/armed-attorneys. You know, we talk to folks all the time, and we run into these kind of misconceptions, things you see in forums, Facebook posts. Sometimes it's funny, and sometimes I think people are joking, but then I actually talk to someone and they have taken it as something that they should actually do. So we got to talk about it. I have 3 of them that I wanted to discuss. So let's get started. The first one, let's say you don't have a license or permit to carry, but you want to defend yourself out in public. A can of Wasp Spray is a good option as a self-defense tool.
Yes, Richard is particularly hot about this one this morning. So, Richard, why is Wasp Spray not an ideal choice?
Well, it's because it's designed for wasps. That's kind of the first big one. But all right,
Sure.
but for real, you know, when we look at justification in self-defense laws, we always have to be justified in whatever degree of force that we're using. So if we are justified in using force, you know, we have to only respond with force. If we be justified in using deadly force, well, then we could use deadly force. And Wasp Spray.
Well, and first of all, I guess we'll back this up. Sorry to interrupt you, but what is deadly force? Deadly force is something that is capable of causing or does cause serious bodily injury or death, which then begs the question, what is serious bodily injury?
Yeah, it could be having your eyes melted out by Wasp Spray.
Yes. Permanent scarring, permanent disfigurement, things that absolutely are on the table if you have Wasp Spray in your eyes are things that could be serious bodily injury. And if they are serious bodily injury, then your Wasp Spray was
A
deadly force.
Yeah, deadly force and a deadly
and
weapon.
a deadly weapon.
And so therefore, and that's why it falls into this uncomfortable place, because most of the time, if we imagine a scenario where we would be justified in using Wasp Spray, for example, it almost never warrants a use of deadly force. And so therefore, if you were to use it, cause serious bodily injury, you're going to have big old problems. Let's not touch the Wasp.
No.
All right. Next one that has been bugging us is what?
Don't drag the body inside. And we've had this channel for 2 years, and I've probably said those words on camera 24 times. And yet, and for those of you who are very self-defense minded, you might be laughing and saying, what sort of idiots actually believe that to be true? And the answer is, it actually is so pervasive in the sort of common self-defense parlance and stories, and particularly amongst sort of older folks, that people call in with this question to us very seriously, which is, you know, look, if I shoot someone, I mean, let's say I even shoot them, they're in my house and they manage to run out and expire on my front porch, do I pull them back inside, show the police I shot them when I was inside? And the answer is no. No. Maybe 100 years ago, maybe 150 years ago.
Before cameras existed.
Cameras, like sophisticated forensics, cops who weren't already like drunk on whiskey for the day. Like, you know, I mean, really, I mean, it's probably a lot easier to crime back then anyway. But now the forensics are such that there is nothing. I mean, I have a client who, you know, messed around with the body after he shot the guy, and it is a problem. We're going to trial in that case, and it is a problem for him, even though it was very innocent messing around of a body, not like you know, trying to stage the scene, but they're accusing him of staging the scene.
Yeah, in that case, I think he was just pulling the guy's wallet out to identify him.
Yes, like get the gun away from the guy, pull his wallet out, see who he is. Like it was innocent behavior. And yet their big deal is like, well, there's his shoe marks in the dirt by the body, and we can see the body got turned over, and where, you know, the gun was in this place, and we think that was state. And it's like there's innocent explanations for all of it, but it's going to be a huge problem for him in trial potentially if the jury buys it. So don't do that.
Yeah, and the 2 big considerations here. One, obviously, you know, we got our crime scene preservation and all those things, but also in most states, you know, let's say someone is trying to, and this is where the misconception comes from, is you get more self-defense rights inside your castle, inside your house. Therefore, it might be to your benefit to have the body inside the house. But what we see in most states is that they permit or they extend the castle doctrine for an attempted forceful and unlawful entry. So they don't actually have to complete the entry in order for for the force to be justified. And the example that Emily gave, the person actually made entry into the castle and then ran away. You would still get your castle
You
doctrine
still get your
protections.
castle doctrine.
So that's one of those things where it's very nuanced and you might actually have the protection and really you're just kind of mucking your case up.
But finally, we want to talk about, and this is a myth that comes up all of the time in our practice, is people who call us and they say, "Hey, I've got the detectives, on my butt about this self-defense instant I got in. I didn't report it because I didn't do anything wrong. I can't get in trouble. I didn't shoot."
Oh, yeah.
Right?
That's a big one.
I mean, there is a large swath of people who believe that if you display your gun, but you didn't shoot. If you display your gun, the threat backs down because you displayed your gun. Maybe you put it on your dash, right? Maybe you didn't even point it. That there is no crime you can be charged with. Nothing happened. All you did was deter a threat. And that is absolutely not true. Pointing a gun at someone, if unjustified, is in many states the exact same level of offense as if you shot them and they lived. And I know, and I actually kind of got a little snippy with someone in the comments last week. Sorry, Richard, you might not have seen that.
Uh-oh.
Who was like, if something's justified, it's not a crime. So what are you guys even talking about? And it's like, no, pump those brakes. It is a crime until justified, not a crime if justified. I mean, it is, they investigate it as a crime. They prosecute it as a crime until you prove your justification. I mean, you have to, right? I mean, I guess technically the state has to disprove it, but you have to introduce justification to a jury for the state to then disprove. And so, no, it's great. In the world in which you have police officers and prosecutors who are willing to take your justification into account on the front end, that's awesome. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, and I think just the rule that you need to be aware of, anytime you are intentionally displaying a firearm, whether that's lifting your shirt up, pulling your coat back, removing it from the holster, there is a chance you get arrested.
Yes.
So this whole...
Because you have crimed.
Right.
You have crimed. However, you may have been justified.
Exactly right. Now, there's a few scenarios, and this is the mindset that unfortunately a lot of clients have, are no crime occurred. I stopped the crime from happening. Let's say
it didn't have to call police.
It didn't have to call police. Yeah, let's say you come out, you see somebody burglarizing your car, and you brandish a firearm just as a warning to get them to stop the burglary, right? You think you stopped the crime, no crime has occurred. That person, that dirtbag, goes and runs and calls the police and says, "Hey, I was just innocently running through the neighborhood, and this maniac with a gun pointed a gun at me." I can't tell you how often that happens.
Yes.
It happens a lot. So that's one of those things where the gun leaves the holster. If it's going to get reported to police, that's when we want it reported by you.
By the victim.
Yeah, by the victim in this case. And so
your justification gets taken way more seriously if
Yep.
you are the one who calls.
But we want to know if you have any other self-defense myths. We want to see them in the comment section, and we'll talk about them in a future video.
Spread the word, please.
But we hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you did, consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and help us fight the anti-2A algorithm by sharing this video.
And please do question and comment below. Until next time, we're the Armed Attorneys. God, the Richard hair again.
My barber went to Germany.
If you would get a toupee, it would solve all of this.
Thanks for busting that. Wink. Just kidding. I'm just fueling conspiracies at this point.